so today's lesson 1.5, it seems like some of you guys remember doing this from earlier. Have you guys already done perimeter and area of rectangles and squares?
Yeah.
What about triangles?
Yeah.
What about circles?
Yeah.
Okay, so there might be a couple new things with the circles that we're just going to go over that are going to help you as you go up the math scale in Algebra 2 and beyond. So we're just going to recap real quick the perimeter and area. You can use the perimeter formula that it equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, or 2 times the length plus the width. Really, if you're finding the perimeter, Aiden, how do you find that? How would you explain what the perimeter is to somebody?
It's the length around the shape.
Okay, yeah, so the length around a shape. So if it was a rectangle, you could also just add all 4 sides together. That would be your perimeter. Okay, the area is going to be the distance of what is inside that shape. So to find that, you have to multiply length times width, or you may have heard base times height. Okay, so you have the perimeter formula, and then you have the area formula. Okay, in a square, we know that all 4 sides of a square are what? Equal, okay, or congruent. So S, let's say S is our side of the square, okay? Then to find the perimeter, you could just do 4 times S, which is the same thing as adding S plus S plus S plus S. Or to find the area, you would just do S squared or S times S. The same thing as the length times width, it's just you only have one side. You only need that one side. Okay, and then the last one, the triangle. So to find the perimeter, you're going to add all 3 sides together. And then, do you guys remember the area formula for the triangle? Or did that have to, 1/2 times base times height? Did you guys remember that from last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so, you might have done a little bit in Algebra 1. Yep. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to talk about is the circumference and area of the circle. So instead of calling it the perimeter of the circle, it is called the circumference. It is still the distance around, and this is the distance around the circle. Now there's actually 2 different formulas. There's one with a D, there's one with an R. Do you guys know what the D stands for? Diameter, and the R stands for? Radius. So let's see how this one has the 2 in it as well. 2 times R, we know that the radius is half of the diameter. So if we multiply the radius by 2, that actually gives you the diameter. And then the area is going to be pi r squared. Okay, so we're going to write down what each of these are. So first we're going to start with the radius. So radius is going to be from the center of the circle to any point on the circle. So it starts at the center and can go to any of the sides. Okay, we also know that the radius is half of the diameter. Okay, so we know that the radius is half of the diameter, which means if you had to find the radius and you were given the diameter, you could just multiply it by 1/2. So the radius equals 1/2 of the diameter. Now you can tell if it's a diameter because the endpoints will be on the circle and it has to go through the center. If it does not go through the center, it is not the diameter. Do you guys actually know what it would be called? So if you just had a segment that did not go through the center. So like if you had something that looked like this. If you had the circle and it didn't go through the center, do you guys know what that's called? It's called a chord. We'll go over it later, but okay, but you have gone over the diameter before. So diameter has to go through the center. The diameter is 2 times the radius. So if you had to find out the diameter and you were only given the radius, you could always multiply it by 2. Okay, so the circumference is the length around the circle. All right, and then let's talk about pi. Have you guys done some activities with pi before?
Yeah.
Okay, so pi is fun, yes. pi is an irrational number. It approximates to 3.14. You will notice on your calculators that there is a pi button. So depending on the directions, they might tell you to find something in terms of pi, which is where you would not calculate it, or they could tell you to approximate, or if they tell you to just use pi, then you'd have to use the button. You can't just use the 3.14, because do you guys know how many digits pi has?
Too many.
Infinite, right? Okay, so it keeps going on forever. Okay, so for our first example, you are going to find the area and perimeter of a square with a side of 3.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do those and check your answers with your elbow partner.
Did you get 9 for the 5 or 7 for the area? No? I added. I was like, this seems so wrong. I like how you're
What'd you get for the perimeter? What? 3.5.
Okay, you should be done if you're working with your partner. Bree, what did you and your partner get for the area?
We got 12.25.
Okay, yeah, good. 2.25 inches squared. Okay, do you guys agree with them?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so 12.25 inches squared. Okay, so you take 3.5, you square it, or 3.5 times 3.5, and then don't forget your units. So your units are going to be inches squared. If it's area, it's always going to be units squared because you're multiplying. All right, and then your perimeter is 4 times s. Riley, what did you and your partner get for the perimeter?
14.
Okay, do we agree? Is it 14?
Yeah.
All right, and then the unit on that would just be inches. All right, so check your units. If you didn't put them down the first time, it's okay. Add them in right now. All right, and then let's flip over to the back side. And it says a triangle has a base of 3 inches and a height of 3 inches. Calculate the total area of 24 triangles. Okay, so not just the one triangle, of 24. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to try to draw a picture of the one triangle. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to draw the picture of the triangle. Okay, so let's see how we did. Now, whenever we're doing the height, okay, how do you know what the height of a triangle is? Or what will always be accompanied by the height? It'll form a special relationship with the base, right? The height and the base are going to meet at what? A right angle. Okay, so every time you do the height, it's going to meet at a right angle. Here is just one of the examples of a triangle that you could have done. Okay, did some of you make it a right triangle off the bat? Yeah, you could do this, right? So your base is 3 and your height is 3, right? Okay, so either way you're going to do 1/2 times base times height, or 1/2 times 3 times 3. What's 3 times 3? 9. Okay, so split 9 in half and you'll get 4.5, and that's inches squared. So remember, that's for one triangle. But Carson, how many triangles do we want to find the area of? Okay, so how are we gonna do that?
By 24.
Okay, yeah, so we're gonna multiply the area of the one triangle by 24, and that will get us the total area, which would be 108 inches squared. Okay, so to find the area of the triangle, we're gonna use 1/2 times base times height. We're given the base and the height in this situation, so we are able to calculate that easily. And then from there, once you know the area of one triangle, you can multiply by 24 to find the area of 24 triangles. Okay, how did that one go? Good, okay. For the next one, it says find the circumference and the area of a circle with a radius of 14 meters. And we're actually gonna round to the nearest 100 on those. Okay, so for the circumference, first let's find our circumference formula. Yeah, what is it, Hope? Okay, so are we given the radius in this case?
Yes.
Okay, so we do know that the radius is gonna be 14. And I'm gonna show you a couple ways to do this. First, if you're leaving it in terms of pi, what you would do is multiply the two numbers together. So what's 2 times 14? 28. Okay, so if it said leave it in terms of pi, this would be a possible answer. Now we're going to approximate that using our calculator. Okay, so I want you to find the pi button, so it'd be 28, and then here's pi. And then we're gonna round that to the nearest 100. Okay, so you would get 87.96. And then let's go ahead and put our units on there. So if it's 14 meters, this would be meters, just meters. Right? Why isn't it meters squared? Okay, so it's not the area, right? So we only have one unit that we're dealing with here. Okay, good. Now we're going to do the area equals pi r squared, and our r is 14. And you guys probably don't know 14 squared off the top of your head, right? Okay. Here, you guys know what 12 squared is, right?
Yeah, it's 144.
Yep, so 12 squared is 144. Do you know what 13 squared is?
160.
No, pretty close.
169.
It's 169, and then look, for 14 squared, those just switch places.
Fancy.
Yep, okay, so this is gonna be 196 pi for your area, which is approximately, so let's find that. Okay, and then again, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna round to the hundredths place. So when you're rounding, if you have 615.752, right, 0.752. If we're rounding to this place, you look at the number after it. If it's a 4 or lower, you're gonna keep it as that number. If it's a 5 or above, then what happens to that number? Yeah, you round it up, okay? So this one will be meters squared. Okay, and then that will be your final answer. All right, your homework, which I'm going to give you the rest of the time to work on tonight, is a worksheet. If you finish it before you leave, please come show it to me.